Everybody coming. I do know we want to try and honor the hour that we have because we've got a couple of the folks over here that have to leave and they don't want you guys to think that it's not important, but we want to make certain that we honor time for everybody. I would say that we can go one of two ways. Liz, I sent you and Mike a tentative agenda.
Yes.
We can do that and we can start with those points, or would you rather?
I do have a couple questions before
Sure.
we get started that have to do with insurance. Have you heard anything from Blue Cross?
Yes. Okay, so I spent far too much time on the phone with Blue Cross this morning. I had told you guys we sent it out to market. We got 2 bids back. One of them was from United and one was from Aetna. United would represent a 9% increase, and Aetna would be a 15.1. So that didn't work out quite the way I was hoping for. As you guys can imagine, I was kind of looking for that to be leverage. It looks at this point that our best number that we can come up with, and frankly, part of this is we're kind of up against it right now. We're out of time. With the situation with COVID, we didn't get all the information from Blue Cross until within the last 3 weeks. It's going to probably end up being a 6.5% increase to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now, I'm going to guess, and this is just a kind of a consensus to see how you guys feel as well. I'm guessing you'd rather stick with who we have at 6.5 than go a higher percent and go with a different company. I mean, I know that sounds...
Well, it's that and just then switching everything around.
Absolutely. And my hope was that they would be a reduction. One of the other two would be, and if we were going to have to go through all that hassle, then that would be a different deal.
Right.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way, and I'm not any more excited about it than you guys, trust me.
So Marty, do you have like an approximate cost of a single plan?
I
doing that?
don't have it all yet. He hasn't sent me the final copy that we have to have.
Okay.
And did the company negotiate with them that you guys we've used in the past?
Yes.
They did, because I didn't think they had. I thought the 5 to 6% increase that we talked about last time that they had not with them yet.
No, that was with the McInnes Group working with me to do the brokerage for the negotiations for the price. That's how we went from 19 to 14 to where we're at.
But we did not increase, right, our service? Did we get that, the usage for the year?
Our usage was not.
It was about flat.
Yeah.
Okay.
It actually, and this didn't help us either, June's finally came in and June was actually a little bit higher. And I haven't seen those numbers. I'm relying on Scott Soxy from the McInnes Group, who does our brokerage stuff.
Next question, so we're just gonna stay in the insurance vein. So would we be getting then the information about, because last year we did the online where we enrolled and did all that stuff, so teachers can be looking for that soon then?
Yes.
Okay.
There should be, it'll either be an email or a letter
Okay.
that you'll get, and it'll, same basic type of thing. At this point, the reason we've kind of held off is we were trying to see what happened with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay. And then, Jill, would you answer a question about Flex, please?
Sure. Several staff members have extra additional money left over in their flex spending because of COVID. They had things scheduled and then they were canceled due to the COVID.
Sure.
And their understanding was that CERNC said it was a decision for the district to decide if you guys were going to allow extra time for them to spend that money so they don't lose it. So what decision has been made on that?
There are two things that happen with that. One, you can carry over $500 each year, and that just so that you don't lose it.
Mm-hmm.
The other part is typically there can be an extension of 30 days, and I would say that we probably are going to do that anyway, at least 30 days. Some of it depends on how much people are rolling over. And if you guys hear that there are several people that it's a substantial amount, more than 500, then let me know. And we'll see what we can do about extending it to, I don't know what date.
So that is an
Maybe
option for
October
staff then?
31st, yes.
Okay, so if it's over $500, they could have more than a 30-day extension.
But they need to talk to you
Right.
about that.
To have
They
them
need
contact you.
Need to
Okay.
let us know.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
Okay, sorry, we just had some of those questions come
No,
up and-
no, I would rather, I had the insurance stuff written down, and I probably would have forgotten.
So, you guys, I guess I wanted to ask, or let you guys know those numbers that you guys had asked for.
Sure.
So you guys had asked for the PE music splits, and how many classes we had and where they are, where PE music is a class and a half. So Northern Hills has 12. Okay, so let me preempt this. So when I say 12, I mean that there are 12 that the PE music teacher, so every elementary teacher, every elementary school has 7 grades, right? Because kindergarten through 6th. Okay, so if they have 3 tracks for each grade, they've got 21 classes. Okay, so in my building in Northern Hills, we've got the 7 grades, we've got 20 classes, not 21. And so we've got 12 classes, so we've only got 6, we've got 6 grades that are split. We've got 1 grade that doesn't have a split, so 6 grades that are split in my building. So that equals 12 classes out of the 14 that PE music sees. In West Indianola, they have 8. 4th and 5th actually are 2 classes per split. 6th and 3rd are 1.5. And so 4th and 5th, you're looking at over 40 kids, probably close to, 45-ish, somewhere in there, kids per class. At Elmont, 3 and 4 are split at 5 classes. So at Elmont it's 3 and 4, and then Kinder is all together. Whether it's 2 classes or 3 classes, Kinder is just all together. At Logan, kindergarten, 1st, 3rd, and 4th are split, so that's 8. And at North Fairview, there are none because they are all only 2 track. So that is a total of 33 classes across the district that are split. I can work that up into a better spreadsheet if you need a spreadsheet to follow all of that reasoning.
You might, just so that there's not a misunderstanding, and
Okay.
we're all,
I will be more than happy to get that emailed out.
yeah, no problem. That way we're all apples to apples, and there's no confusion.
SPED teachers, we asked Ms. Raines about the number of SPED contracts and supplemental we have in the district. She informed us that there were 85 supplemental contracts for SPED and that 33 of those are related services. So that would be 52 SPED and gifted teachers in our district.
Liz,
Yes.
before we move on from that, so which number were you guys wanting to increase the percentage? The 52, the 33, the 85? Wasn't there a smaller number per building or something you indicated?
It would not include.
We were primarily looking at the 52.
Okay.
Okay. That takes care of the info that you guys had asked for. So did you want to start with discretionary leave?
We can do that,
Okay.
or, and if you would rather start with salary, we can do that, or would you rather go down the list just as it is?
Can I ask one question really
Yeah.
quick? I'm just trying to add numbers up. You had mentioned that you wanted to add a supplemental, I think you said FBLA, something. I didn't get
Split it.
a middle
We
school.
were just gonna split the FBLA middle.
Oh, so we're not adding a supplemental?
No.
We're adding a person but splitting it in 2 or something?
Right.
Okay, sorry. I was just trying to put numbers on my spreadsheet. Thank you. Just clarify. Sorry.
And it's up to you, we can go straight down the list, the way it is, or,
Well, we can start with discretionary. Stick
Okay.
around if you want. felt like we gave our presentation on that point, so.
Yep. I guess here would be my question, and this may be one that you guys want to ponder. And correct me if I get this to where it's not quite right. What you would like to see would be to convert sick leave to all to discretionary.
Yes.
If we were to do that, would you be willing to forego the sick leave buyback? At the end of the year, you know how there's an opportunity if you haven't used those days.
Right.
And I will be honest with you, there will be an increase in the number based upon what I've seen in other districts. There'll be an increase in the number of days used.
Yes.
And that helps balance that out.
So that'd be just not a buyback that year? What about if someone retires and has that?
Different deal, different deal. It would just be the individual buyback each year. The retirement part wouldn't change.
Talk me through that. So,
If
if I've got 12, if I've got, let's not even talk about what I have built up, but if I've just got 12 for this year, instead of maybe using 5, and let's say I'm one of the teachers that have, 60+ days, and I'm like, I feel like I would rather have the money, instead of doing that, I could either put those over into my sick or they just disappear.
Well, they wouldn't go
Well, I
away.
guess they would go over to my sick.
Right, well,
So-
although we wouldn't necessarily have sick anymore because sick would eventually disappear. Because all of it would convert to discretionary.
So you're talking even the teachers that have 90 days built up in their sick, because right now, we have the 2, okay, you have 7 days of sick and then 5 days discretionary and then everything rolls into sick. You're talking, if we convert all of that to discretionary,
Right,
they wouldn't be able to sell back what they have left over this year.
Right, there are one of two ways we could do it. We could
Okay.
leave sick leave as it is. And I'm talking the
Right.
ones that are carried.
Okay, the carried over?
The 90 days you have or
Right.
whatever. And once those are exhausted, they're exhausted. And everything from that point forward would become discretionary.
Okay,
From a tracking standpoint, it's probably easier if everything just became one thing, discretionary.
okay,
So what we would have called sick leave in the packs would just be called discretionary, or whatever
Or
term
just
we want.
leave.
Right,
yeah,
right. And our proposal, or counter proposal, or thing for you to chew on and think about, maybe might be the best way to put it, would be if we were to move that to where all those were discretionary, the trade-off would be that we wouldn't have a buyback for those 12 days each year. Now, the retirement thing is a separate deal. I don't want to murky the waters with that. So, like this year, if Mike had 8 days left or whatever, out of the 12 that he had been awarded,
right,
he had the opportunity that if he wanted to try and sell those back, he could.
right,
What would happen would be, now we wouldn't have that as an opportunity.
right,
And that would offset financially the cost of an increased number of days that typically are taken when you go from discretionary to, or all to discretionary.
okay.
Do you think that incentive to buy them, though, helps teachers not use them because they know they can sell them back at the end of the year?
Great, because you guys
It
buy
can-
them at a cheaper, you guys buy them back at a cheaper rate than what you pay a sub.
Was there an increase in sub usage when we went to more discretionary days? Do you guys have that?
I'll be honest, I don't have
Because
that.
you're saying that if it's all discretionary, we'll see an increase, but did we see an increase when?
And I don't know here. I can tell you that I was in a district that did that, and there was about a 12% increase.
I mean, I can see there being an increase if I'm a teacher and I've got a ton of days built up. And I don't need those, like, if I've got, you know, if I'm getting closer to retirement, you can only sell back 100, I'm at 90, I don't really need all those days. If I'm looking at, okay, I can either take these days, or I can put them into this huge pot I already have, I might think about taking those days. I can see why there would be an increase. I guess I mean, don't get me wrong, we're gonna totally talk about it. But I am confused on why not having the buyback at a lower rate than what a sub is offsets that cost.
$30 times the number of days is not gonna be the same as $70 times the number of days.
True.
I mean, that's the math behind it. You guys think about it?
Okay.
Because I know we've got some
Right.
time constraints, so I don't want to rush through anything by any means, but I also don't want you to. And that way, if you've got more questions, and you may have more questions that
Okay.
come up, and don't hesitate to holler back. Changes in the sick leave bank. And I know you guys dealt with pregnancy.
We were-
Specifically was the example I think you used.
Right, but we also talked about letting people donate to people. And instead of having a committee that is made up of district employees and SEA members, or so teachers and admin, and then having them fill out the form and request why they would need the days, you know, there are a couple of different options that we had talked about, and I don't think as a committee we are dead set on any one of them, but we would like to see something where if there is something going on and maybe the committee still exists but they've denied it, or maybe the committee, you know, maybe we go all to, I, you know, have to have this surgery and I need days, would anybody be willing to donate any days to me? And do a donation thing like that. Just something that would maybe not make our sick leave thing so gigantic, I guess.
It's
Kind of
it's
that
cumbersome.
has a huge benefit for the teachers.
And this is just
Yeah.
throwing out an idea. Would you guys entertain the idea that the sick leave bank as it is now just goes away, and the way that it would work would be if a person put in a request, that it would be the manner that you guys are talking about?
So they would request from the district for for days.
Right, for teachers to.
For teachers to donate.
Right.
My question to that would be, there are a number of teachers that are still in the leave bank, that, one got taken out, you know, whenever it is they joined. What would be done with that day that they have already donated that would still be there?
But my first thought would be that they probably would just get it back. If the bank went away altogether, it seems like a reasonable solution that they would get their day back. Now, the problem's going to be, and I don't have the specific numbers, the number of folks that you have that are in the bank, have donated to the bank, versus the number of days in the bank, and I don't have that
Right.
number. If we have 175 people, and I'm
Right.
just throwing a number out there, 175 people, but we only have 100, there's no way we can give back 175 days, because obviously some of them have been used.
Well, what if you would just phase that bank out? So we switch to the new thing where people donate today, so the first, however many days are in the bank, we use those first. And then start thinking about, I mean, that way, I mean, again, I don't know how many days you have, but that way you don't have to figure out who
Right.
pays what days.
I guess I guess my concern on that would be, my, you know, and all of this is just off the top of my head. You know, you had to donate a day to belong to the bank, and so if you didn't donate a day, you couldn't put in a request. Where if you go and you request, and people request donations, they might not have already put a day into that bank, so they're not. Actually, I think,
No, it's
Mike,
not
you
on
said
it.
you,
In the last district I was in, they'd send out a piece of paper. Liz has used all her sick days. She has this condition and she needs more days. Are you willing to give? If they put it in your box, you could throw it in the trash, you could donate days. You send it back and forth, say, I donate.
Are you asking how it is right now?
No, I'm asking how you do it. I mean, it seems like there'd be like HIPAA issues there. I'm not a HIPAA expert, but I don't think, what if no one likes Liz?
Whoa, there's that.
I mean, you'd think there'd be some anonymous aspect.
Yeah,
to it.
One of the things I thought about, Brad, when they would send those, this person uses all 10 of their days every year. And I think, okay, why don't you think about, I might need to do something later instead of, well, I wanted a mental health day. And I looked at, if you're pregnant and it's a normal pregnancy, I typically didn't donate to that. If it was an abnormal pregnancy, I did donate to that, because have the child
So,
give choice.
I think
You don't always
that
choose to, something to be wrong.
I think HIPAA is different because the person is voluntarily giving that specific information away. And so if you are authorizing the district to say this specific information about you, then that, you know,
Right, the district is protected.
yeah.
And I'm not speaking for our side. I like where you're headed with the day thing. I just think it'd be nice if it's a little bit anonymous. I don't have to reveal to all the employees what my condition is. And, but I get what you're saying about,
And that's, I guess, one of the reasons why we had talked about almost like a hybrid model, except lessen the wording within the contract so that it's not nearly as lengthy, because if you look at the wording for sick leave in the contract, it's pretty lengthy. That if they're denied by the sick leave bank, then they can go ahead and put it out to the district, but that if they would like it to remain anonymous and so that they just get the days, then they can still do the sick leave bank. So I mean, if there's like a hybrid, we would just like the sick leave bank to be a benefit that teachers feel like that they have and that they can use.
When I was at the county, it's very generic. I mean, we didn't have the teachers in the, you know, it went out countywide, but it was basically so-and-so at this department's requesting 324 hours. I mean, that's pretty much all it said. It wasn't what it was for, anything like that. It was basically, Joe at Solid Waste needs 340 hours. If anybody wants to donate, I mean, it's as simple as that. Now, he had to turn in more specific information to HR to get it approved for them to allow him to ask for it. But what went out to everybody else asking for the hours was pretty generic. So, I mean, it could go to the committee or whoever
honestly,
with
if
more
someone's
specific.
and honestly, if someone's if I'm gonna donate a day or a half a day, you know, if people can donate a half a day, that'd be awesome. But if I wanna donate a day or a half a day, I'd like to know who it's going to, just like I like to know where my money goes when I donate my money. So, but yeah, we will definitely talk about that. That's an option. Thank you.
Flex days,
Yes.
and I think the example that you used was on like those half-day work days, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm old and I forget. But on those half-day work days, the idea would be if Mike had done had all his grades and everything, whatever was supposed to be accomplished during that time frame, done, and he's there for the professional development in the morning, he would just be done, and it would be the trade-off. He's taking that time, he's just not using it at the same time.
Correct.
Okay.
Liz, how many days are we speaking of?
Right now, we have, the contract says it's a half a day at the end of each quarter.
Okay.
So it's not that many days. We have one day, I believe, built at the very beginning that's building time, but I can't see any teacher not being in their building like 2 days before school starts. But it's really that half day at the end of each quarter is really the only flex time that I was able to kind of see that we would have available in our contract.
And I think that's one we can certainly consider.
Yeah, that's silly. You already did it. Why would you come back?
Right.
What are you doing? So,
due process, I don't believe at this point we're interested in changing anything with due process. Class size, and I know that was the numbers that you were talking about. And this seems like it's a loaded question, it's not meant to be.
Okay.
And what would your solution to that be?
Honestly, I think as a committee, we have a hard time figuring that out for what the situation was that we were talking about. You know, we have a part-time PE and I believe a part-time music teacher.
Correct.
For that travels between two different buildings. You know, I don't know if that would be something else that we look at doing, is doing maybe another part-time that travels between two other different buildings. As far as facilities within that, do they share the gym at the same time? Do they put down a net so that's half and half? Is there a para that is instructional para that's hired specifically for music and specifically for PE, and they stick in those rooms that have, and they become almost like a co-teacher. You have the lead teacher, but you have the para that's assigned specifically to those rooms, and that's where they're at all the time. And they are not a sped para. You know, I guess that would be my big thing is, okay, yeah, you got a para now, the sped teacher might think, okay, we don't have to put someone in there, you can't count that as minutes. It would be an instructional person to help. I just think that looking at some of the very large size class sizes that we have in some rooms that we have in our district would be having an extra body and having, you know, someone that the kids know, hey, that's also my teacher in that room would be helpful.
And
You know, whether it's, you take an extra half, take another person and split it between buildings. I think we're kind of open to how that looks. I think, the board has been very receptive to class sizes in the past. And with hard data and looking at some of the consistent numbers, the board has taken action to make sure that class sizes aren't quite as big as what maybe they could be. And we're hoping that this particular situation is just one of those ones that they would take a look at.
I think probably the big challenge was that, and I say this because we're talking negotiations, and one of the topics we're going to get to is salary. But the challenge is the more personnel we add, the more expense that we have.
I agree.
That
Yeah.
takes away from whatever we might be able to offer the folks that are here right now. If we hired, and again, I'm just using an arbitrary, pulled it out of the air. If we hired 4 people, and they're teachers, and we spend roughly $200,000, that's $200,000 that can't go towards
Correct.
something else. Not that you guys didn't know that, but just to, extra duty pay. And again, part of the challenge with this is, and I know the idea was maybe to go to $21 for all of them.
That was our proposal.
Right. And I don't know, Lorna, if you have any idea on how much that would cost?
Roughly, without going into every little level, that was what you're looking between $15,000 and $18,000 increase a year.
In the overall cost. And while it's not one of those that I would say is a no, I would say that the challenge with that is that money still has to come out of something.
I guess I would say that we're more than willing to bargain with that one.
Okay.
That was our initial plan and idea, and if the
Sure.
board has other ideas to give a greater benefit to those teachers who are taking time out from being away from home and doing that kind of stuff, then we'll be more than happy to listen to that.
Rearranging snow days. And correct me if I'm wrong, you guys were thinking instead of 1 and 4 being the ones that weren't, I'm trying to think the best way to put this, that didn't have to
Require
be
a
an eight.
makeup, yes,
You guys were thinking days 1 and 2.
correct.
And I don't think we necessarily have any issue with that.
Thank you.
Supplementals.
Yes.
And I've got the SMS FBLA, but for clarification, you're thinking of that position essentially being split.
So, right, and I'm not sure that, we talked about how that probably didn't require a contract change.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and how that just in HR, it just, each person gets a 0.5.
Correct.
And it would just stay in the contract just as one position, each person would just get a 0.5.
Right.
Correct. Yep.
And you guys are okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah, and that way, that can just be communicated with
Yep.
the building principal and the sponsors.
Yep.
Chair percentage change. And I think the proposal that you made was to go from 10% to 20?
Correct.
And I guess my question, and I don't mean this, just for clarification more than anything else, what makes cheer different than any of the other ones that aren't at that 20%?
I need to look to see which other ones aren't at that 20%.
It's multi-season.
So what about Daniel?
There's a lot of them. That schedule in general does not look great, to be honest with you. You've got a couple head spots that are 20, you've got some 18, 17, and they just kind of all go downhill from there. And some of those go past one season at a time. Yeah, you got head dance, you've got drama, those things happen twice a year also. They're coming in on the weekends. I mean, it just looks, I don't want to say it doesn't look good. I think it's fine. It's been working for a while, but it's probably time to revisit that. And I go back to the,
I guess my first answer to that one is, we had a request put into request.
and that's totally, I get it. I do. I totally get it. It's more so like, I almost flip them, like your extra duty pay, if you wanted to get rid of the tiers there, that makes sense probably. But maybe unique tiers, we could talk some other time about the supplementals on how that would be shaken out. Because they're all over the map. I took a good study of those myself, and they just don't look great.
And we would be more,
As soon as I looked at the tier, I was like, well, what about this one? And then
Right.
this one, and then I just kept chasing my tail, and I was like, well,
and
where
we
do you
would
stop?
we would be open to taking a look at that schedule in general and seeing if there needs to be other changes that need to happen. I'm sure when that schedule was first created and those kinds of places were put, those kinds of things were put in, maybe they weren't doing quite as much as what they
Right.
are now, and what they have,
Could be.
and I wouldn't say even what they are this year, but a lot of those coaches and sponsorships have been adding so much responsibility throughout the whole year, and it doesn't look like no matter who takes over, that responsibility is just all of a sudden going to disappear.
Right.
That's the program now, and so maybe it is something that we need to look at
And
further.
to be clear, it's not for lack of respecting what that person does. I can't imagine doing that personally. That looks like a ton of work,
It
regardless
is.
of whatever role those are. I get it. That's not my take on it. It's just, it just didn't look good across the board.
Yeah.
Assistant cheer is also on there. Like, what about them?
Yeah.
That seems like another.
Yeah,
So I just kept going into a rabbit hole with
Yeah.
that one. So
okay,
I think let's take a beat on that and revisit that perhaps, but
okay.
that was just my personal view of that one specifically, especially when I was looking at the extra duty pay. I was like, well, that's almost needs flipped in a way. come up with one default number for the extra duty and then come up with tiers perhaps for the other. Just an idea.
We are, yeah, we are more than welcome. We would be totally willing to work with those two tables and figure out some other things. And, you know, if we can get coaches and sponsors to kind of lay out their year for us and get some really added, information on what that looks like for them, you know, all the better, all the more
I mean,
knowledge we would have.
not to put one more thing on their plate, but
Right.
honestly, they may be leaving money on the table, frankly. If we don't take a little bit of a deeper dive into what that could look like. For those people that are already putting in, not to downplay somebody that's watching a gate, but, you know, maybe we put that dollar towards somebody that's actually spending countless hours on the weekend trying to get their practice schedule set up, or, you know, that just seems like a better maybe use of our dollars in that area.
Okay.
Personally, it's my read on how those two should go.
We would definitely be more than willing to work with that. Okay.
And that probably means that we need to study it long enough, but that's probably not something we're gonna be able to change this year.
Okay.
But something that we could work on throughout the course of the year, and we can communicate on that as we get information to create, you know, a table. Here's the amount of time, and I'm sure that each one of those, there are things that none of us see that those folks do. And as a matter of fairness and equity, we wanna know what those things are to make the best, most reasoned decision that we can. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, you know, if we can get a committee going, and we can definitely lay out some what our plan is going to be, moving forward. I feel like this is something that we could definitely do, especially the getting of the information and collating all of that kinds of information that we don't necessarily need to meet about, so we could do virtually, do over email. If we want to maybe just pick a couple off from each team to maybe work on that.
Sure. I think that's a good idea.
Probably gonna be part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Because they're gonna have some knowledge that will be
Right.
beneficial.
Right, and then we gave you the information for the sped stipend change. Oh, the next one was ELL.
Right. And,
Is that just house cleaning, Marty? I mean, is that,
yeah, I mean, I think,
I mean, does that need to be in this?
right, we made certain that we took care of that
Right.
last year because it had been that way. And I guess the question would be, is that something we need to add to that?
So the worry, our concern is because your ELL coordinator, for lack of a different title that I don't know, the ELL coordinator is not a sped teacher. And so therefore legally cannot
Oh, but they
get a
were getting the
sped
sped
stipend.
stipend. I see.
But they were
That's why it
getting the
stopped.
sped
Okay.
stipend. And so this last year, that error in accounting and naming was found out. And so HR and the district was able to work with that teacher to get her that money that she would have gotten originally under the sped stipend, had gotten in the past. But we just need to call it something different so that she can continue to get that money, or whoever is in that position can continue to get that money.
Could you get me information on how much time is spent outside of the duty day? And it doesn't,
Yeah.
I don't need it right now.
Okay,
I just
because Amber has sent me stuff, but I'll need to look at this.
sort through,
finally.
trust me,
Yeah.
I understand completely.
So we already pay it, it's just rewording the name of it.
Correct.
So it's not an
That's what I was
increase in
making sure.
cost.
Correct.
And it's not
Okay.
necessarily listed in the negotiated agreement. because-
It probably should be if it's going to be a supplemental,
Yep. I
um,
agree.
listed in the negotiated agreement, like. I
But us
would-
being able to explain, yes, it's this much because here's the amount of time spent outside of the duty day.
Yeah, and I have like all her duties and stuff that she does that's not.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I'll just need to find that email.
That just helps be able to explain and
Lorna, do you know how
justify.
much we paid on that?
No, do not.
1,600 was what it ended up being.
She was getting the 4%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it just happened though, it's not like she's been gone without for a while, right? She's-
Right,
We're not.
right. She was getting it all along, and then the
Okay.
error and was made, so she's been getting it this whole time. So it's not an
Right.
additional
Okay.
cost, it's renaming a cost.
That's all I mean by house cleaning, I don't mean to
Yeah.
downplay it or whatever, I'm just
Yeah.
like, sounds like we just we're off kilter a little bit now,
Yeah.
so. Sounds, yeah, doable.
The sped stipend changing from 4 to 6.
Maybe.
And
Yeah.
just to make sure that I'm clear, and the rationale behind that, can you go over that again?
Our sped teachers, they're, and my brain completely decided to shut off. Their caseload is getting larger. Gradually, when you look at the caseload of number of kids that they have, it has gradually been getting larger over the last few years. They are seeing different types of caseloads, so where we are seeing a lot more behavioral caseloads than what they were seeing before. There's been just a very big switch into what those teachers have had kind of been required of them. I know at the elementary level, your sped teachers are going to be the first to respond to any student who happens to be either endangering themselves or endangering to others, because the sped teachers have been the ones that get NCI training. Even if that student is not sped themselves, they're the ones who respond to those types of things. So their duties, those kinds of duties within the building, are just getting greater than what they have been in the past.
So not necessarily, and this is for clarification, not necessarily additional time outside of the duty day, but the types of things that they're dealing with within the duty day.
The types of things to do within the due date, and then because their caseload is growing, that means that they are doing more meetings outside of the duty day, because those meetings are usually going to be after school or before school, depending on, your level. And so just doing all of that work for the IEPs is taking a little bit longer. Now, I will point out that our I have to look at this term every time.
Related
Thank you.
services.
Our non-related services.
If only we had somebody right here.
Right. They do IEPs, and they do a section of IEPs, and technically when you look at the caseload, if we have only got a few OTs, they could have a huge caseload, but they're usually only responsible for a small part of the IEP, even though they do go to multiple IEP meetings, and I don't want to downplay what they do, because they do an amazing job, and they are at a ton of different IEP meetings. And then we'll add to the IEP in that section. I'm thinking more of, and I guess, yes, I would draw the difference between what is done in a typical day as far as who responds to different emergencies within the building, and how all of that goes.
So Liz, you mentioned the increase in the numbers. Do you know what that percentage may look like over the last several years?
I don't. I can do some research and find that out.
Let's do that.
I don't have it, but as a special ed teacher, I can tell you that when I started here and where I'm at now, the increase in the number of students I have in my actual class size has consistently increased since I started here 15 years ago. So I don't have the percent, but I can tell you each year, not only do our caseloads increase, but the actual kids in our classrooms are increasing. In some years, I have more in my resource classroom than some gen ed teachers.
Let's do this. Let us do a little research on it, and if you guys can come up with some numbers and everything too, that way we can revisit that topic.
Okay. Okay. So we are on I, number of days of duty. I'm going to combine I, J, and K.
Okay.
So I looked at what our contract says as far as the number of days we are contracted and the number of hours per day that we are contracted. And we are contracted 184 days at 7 hours and 15 minutes per day.
Right.
Yeah, 184 days at 7 hours and 15 minutes per day. I took the base salary of just beginning teacher at 40,000. And I divided all of that out. And if we were to add 15 minutes a day, to a teacher's contract, and so make it 7 hours and 30 minutes a day. The teachers would be open to that if they were paid for the time that was increased. So even with just taking the base pay of 40,000, it's $7.50 more per day per teacher, or $1,380 more per teacher per year, by adding 15 minutes a day. 1,380. Now, we have an issue where, right, we have an issue where in your elementary schools, time has essentially already been added to their contract day already. So, or at least contact time. So, elementary schools, so in my school, we're asked to report by 8:30. And that the kids so we're asked to report by 8:30. The doors open for kids at 8:30. Where before we started serving breakfast, we were asked to report by 8:30. The kids went into the gym at 8:40. Teachers were on duty at 8:40. So by adding breakfast, every elementary teacher is automatically on duty 10 more minutes a day without seeing an increase in time for that, or amount of money for that. Now, some buildings have done it different. My building does it different than West Indianola, than Elmont, and I think the reason why you guys might just be hearing about the extra duty is because since every building does do it differently, we don't know what each other are doing until the very end of the year. My building did it where we had duties and maybe 3 teachers were on duty during that 10-minute period once a week in the morning. So you had like 1 morning duty and you were on duty for that 10 minutes. But some buildings do it where every teacher is on duty starting at 8:30. And so we feel like the added $1,380, if we were to add amounts in the contract already, that's, a lot of teachers have already been doing that, at least in your elementary schools, have already been doing 10 of that 15 minutes. The same would go for contact days with kids. By increasing the number of contact days with kids, we feel like that's increasing your workload because you are planning for another day, you're with kids another day. There's a difference between having a workload and coming to in-service than the workload that you have when you are with kids. And so we would like to see, in order to agree to that, we would like to see added money to the contract just to break even for that. And you had done hours of duty.
Right, just for, and that had more to do with the consistency.
Okay.
Requirement of 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after. Not a change in the amount of time, but something that would be, might help you guys out.
Well, the only problem with the not changing the amount of time is, and I'm gonna use the high school as an example, because the high school is a definite, this is when school starts, this is when school ends, where the elementary, because of kids randomly coming in, or like the school start when you release from the gym, or does, like, it's, elementary's just weird. So, I'm gonna use the high school as an example. So the high school starts at 7:55 and ends at 3:05, so that's 7 hours and 10 minutes. Now, we take away, actually, I won't take away yet. So that's 7 hours and 10 minutes. The high school needs to report, at least when I was here, and if that's changed, someone please let me know. But the high school is told to report at 7:35 and that they can leave at 3:15. So that is 7 hours and 40 minutes. So if you take away the 25 minutes of duty-free lunch, you're at your contracted amount of 7 hours and 15 minutes already. Now that's already 20 minutes before school starts and 10 minutes after school ends. So your proposal would be to switch that, except that kids get released from the commons at 7:40, so you would have, I mean, the whole goal of 7:35 is so that teachers aren't walking into the doors when kids are getting released. The teachers don't have to be here until kids are released. Then do you push back the time that kids are released, or? So that's our only concern about mandating 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after, is those types of things. And how that would look, how the buildings operate, how that would go.
Job vacancies posted on the website.
We don't have an objection to, I mean, for
Just
what
what-
we had.
Just
go ahead.
consistency of
For
how
what
it's
we had
done.
talked about, we
That's not happening.
appreciated the consistency and making sure that every job was posted. And yes, if you want to apply for that, then you're gonna have to take some time and fill out the talent ed form, and hopefully talent ed gets its act together and puts a, I'm already a member or a employee of this district form in there. But until they do that, you might have to take some time and fill it out once and hope, you know, and let that sink in. We do like the consistency and the transparency of every single job being posted. And we only ask that we figure out how people would be notified that those job vacancies are open and able to be applied for.
Is that something you feel that, I mean, I feel, to me, hearing that, that's a personnel thing, like,
I
meaning,
agree.
with Marty at the helm now, you got.
I don't
you know,
think necessarily we need to put that, but
I mean,
that.
Dennis, I love to death, but, you know, I got new blood, Marty, here's your concern, that
Right.
seems like quick
Well,
fix, you can
And
put
we
something
could,
together.
and
for
we
that.
could add a line that it should be posted that there's a vacancy in each building or something. to
Right,
that
or
effect.
just an email sent out to the whole district saying this is what was currently posted, or this was posted today, or, you know, it doesn't have to be anything super formal, just that notification to in-district that it was posted.
Right.
Yep.
But for consistency's sake, no, we do like that. I'm gonna skip in for a sec. I feel like, we felt like on N, the salary movement request deadline for June 1, that's been, I guess we all thought that was kind of the practice.
And for the most part, it has, but I will tell you that.
It's just not stated, right?
Right, and as a result, we had a couple of people that put in a request after I started this past year,
Okay,
which to me, which is just a weird thing, because it was April 6th, or August 16th or whatever, and the deadline was September 1st, and I remember asking, well, how in the world did you budget for this?
okay.
So
Okay.
the big thing on that is just, it's there, and then that way, it helps you guys and
Right.
it helps us, because it's a firm, it's there, it's a deadline, you gotta have it by then.
Right, right. And we'll just need to make sure that we are clear with teachers that if you're taking class hours over the summer that would make you move over, you need to be aware that you need to let them know that. It doesn't mean you have to have the hours completely done,
Right.
but, yeah,
Yep, they've still got until September 1st to get the transcripts and everything.
right. And we don't have a problem with that either, so that is fine. On O, I think as long as we put a line, talked about as long as there was a line in the agreement that said, this is where the agreement can be found, this evaluation will still be part of the negotiated agreement, it's just as an addendum to the contract, that actually,
I believe
Thought
it.
what was in there.
I thought there was a line in there already about that. It makes total sense, though. And again, that was the only reason was to make it a shorter document, right? It was already so big.
Yeah.
To
I
try
could've
and clean it
sworn
up.
that was in there, but I've read a lot. I don't know. That seems doable. Fred crawls through that every other day,
yeah, I'm
so.
not finding it now
Yeah.
either. I know it's-
Do you know what I mean, though? Don't you?
Yeah.
Seems odd it isn't. Like, how would you even know it's, but, like, there was a reference to the addendum or
Page
something.
16,
Item 29.
item 29.
There you go. Does it already say it in there?
It says it's published separately, but yet we've been attaching it this whole time?
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Trust me, I understand.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
There was one thing on here that we didn't know, if this was something we needed to negotiate, or if this was something that needed to be taken care of in-house, but the coverage for leaving. We had talked about if a teacher needed to leave for an hour or come back for, so if that's not something that the board had had a chance to discuss, then maybe we can put that off until
Yeah, we have.
next
We
week.
haven't
Okay. And then, the language to discourage absences on PE day, our big question on that, and it's the same as when it was brought up before, is why? You know, so many teachers, if they have to make a doctor's appointment for themselves or their kids, and they look at it and go, okay, I can either take my kids and or myself out of school for a day, or I can take a PD day and not have to get a sub and not have to worry about doing lesson plans, they're gonna take the PD day. So, I guess our big question is, why would you want language to limit it, and what kind of would that language look like, and
Well,
what?
and understand that I would say that the question or the response to that is, why do we have PD days at all then? If they're not important enough for you to be there in attendance, then why do we have them? And we had 185 absences on the 9 days.
So they're using it for the reason you say. That's our perspective, is just, you're taking an opportunity to, it's literally called professional development, and because of whatever circumstances you've just identified.
Right.
We totally get happens, and Marty's number to prove that out, that seems like they're missing an opportunity. So how can we write that a little bit? How can we fix that? That's the why, though.
And you guys may have a better solution
Right.
to fix that than we do.
And I would say before we did the discretionary sick, people just took it as sick.
Okay.
So now they have a choice, do I wanna use it as sick or discretionary?
Because they're gonna save the sick, because what if I need that? But I'll use that PD day and I'm out, because I gotta go do those appointments or whatever. So that, maybe it's just language, and we're using the wrong buckets to borrow from Peter to pay Paul there, if you use that reference. I mean, it's obviously what's happening. They're too afraid to use up the thing that they really need to use in that circumstance, and they're applying it in a different area. That's our perspective, is that's what PD's for, is we want them to take part of that.
And we don't disagree. We would, there are, we as educators, if we can find something new to learn and new ways to help our kids, or, to help ourselves help our kids, then we are totally open for that. I would be hesitant to put some language in the contract saying, and one, I don't even know what kind of language we're talking about, so it's very vague to me going on right now. But putting language in a contract that would penalize a teacher for missing PD basically just says, okay, am I gonna get penalized for missing PD, or am I going to take a day off and take a day when I have kids? Now, most of us, I believe, try to put appointments over spring breaks and over Christmas break and Thanksgiving break and, and try to do all those kinds of things. But I guess one, we're having a hard time understanding even what to argue against, because of, other than just saying we like wordage, there's not this is what the consequence would be, or this is what the wordage would be. And I guess too is I've had conversations with people, and maybe people aren't seeing PD as something that they see as beneficial. Maybe looking at PD more and looking at what we do in PD would make people see the value in the professional development.
So historically, has SEA played a role in the professional development committee?
No. SEA does not play a role in professional development when it comes to making those things. Now, I personally am a member of the professional development committee in my building. And there have been conversations that I've had with other members of PDs or other members of that committee and just other teachers in general, that sometimes PD can be so broad or so specific, depending, that it doesn't help or doesn't focus on what you do. So I have always been, for lack of a better term, I'm a specials teacher now, but before that I was an extra. I was in the business department and taught computer coding. So, PD, when we were talking about group work, and I can't even remember, it's been that long, but a lot of PD historically in my educational career hasn't always applied to what I teach. And so I think before we talk about teachers not using their days on PD, maybe we need to, and other people on the committee have talked to me about this, is that maybe we need to take a harder look at what our PD entails and what are our teachers getting out of our PD. Because if you can go to a conference and it's specifically relevant to what you teach, you get so much more out of it than if you are going to something that, okay, well, these are my 3 things that I get to choose from for PD, and none of them are really relevant to me.
But the bottom line here is that we want to see our teachers take advantage of the PD offerings that will benefit them. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yes.
but I don't think they always see the value of some of those that are being offered. I'd like to know what of those days that teachers are missing, how many of them are district PD days versus building PD days? Because I think also you would see, I think, depending on what type of PD day it is, how many are missing as well.
That's a,
And I will speak, I've taken a PD day off. I had to have surgery, I had to have 2 weeks off. And so I scheduled it right before spring break, which a PD day is right before that. I only had to have a sub for 2 days, when otherwise I would have had a sub for 2 weeks. So,
Yeah, financially, obviously, it's good for the district.
yeah.
But again, our concern is we want to make sure that you as teachers get that professional development that benefits you.
And we would definitely 100% agree with that statement, that we would like to have professional development that benefited us.
Right.
And, you know, it's interesting that this gets brought up because I had this conversation right at the beginning of the summer with someone else on the PD committee. And she was telling me that in her previous district, PD was all teacher organized and teacher led. And that, you know, teachers said, okay, this is what I want to work on. This is what I want to learn. These are where I feel like my holes are. This is what I feel like I need to work on. And then as a PD committee, they looked at all of that teacher input and said, okay, these are the types of trainings. These are the types of things that we need to do. And then maybe with, you know, some district support and stuff, but that PD was definitely teacher-centered and teacher-led, and not necessarily from the district. All right, well, this is what you're going to do. And so I think if teachers were able to be more invested in what they were learning and get those different options, that they would see that more as something that they looked at. You know, instead of, okay, well, I can either take a sub or I can not do sub lesson plans. Because in all honesty, that's where it's coming down to. In all honesty, if you have a teacher and they are trying to figure out when I can make this appointment, and their choice is either I can be gone for the day and do subs and leave my kids with a sub, or I can miss a PD day, especially if they're topped out, they're going to miss that PD day. Because the hours that in PD, if they've got a master's, they don't need the hours, and they're topped out, the hours they miss from PD is going to be far less valuable to them right now than taking hours to do your sub-lesson plans and figuring out a sub for you.
But, and see, that's completely counterintuitive to how we perceive it should be going. And I'm saying that in a way that I support what you're saying. Like, in your case, you're probably planning, you're scheduling around PD, frankly. You know, if you're topped out and all that, you're like, well, calendar's coming up, I better book my appointment because of that, which frankly stinks. I mean, it just means there's less value in the PD that you're getting, and you're using it as an opportunity to have to take less time, you know, so that's hard.
And I agree. And we would love to see more PD that teachers feel gives them a value and that they're excited to go to.
Except you still probably have some stuff come up.
But-
You know, regardless of how good the content is. That's tricky.
At the state level, we're working on a new form of PDC for called micro-credentials. It's moving at a snail's pace because the Department of Ed is just trying to work through it. But it is, you look at what you need, you can go online, or courses you can take in that apply to your specific area. And that will be, it may replace our current PD. It may be that you need to work on a micro-credential during this time. The teachers will feel that is much more valuable to them because it is their area that they're working on or their deficiency. I've worked for 7 years on that at the state level and the Professional Standards Board. The state board wants it to come to them. We can't get the Department of Ed to say, let's move it there, so, but it will be soon.
I was in a meeting this morning, Mike, and we were talking about that, micro-credentials.
People will love it, particularly the younger teachers that can see places they need to improve. The ones that are maxed out on points, may not make the right decision.
So if this is something you feel strongly about, we can take a look at language, but for us, it's very big and just an idea floating around.
Right.
And
Looks like we need to add this to the study list on how do we make
Yeah.
PD days.
I agree.
I would agree with
Okay.
that.
If we improve PD day quality, then people may want to attend
Yeah.
more,
Right.
but we not even have to. problem.
May resolve itself.
Yeah.
All right, so you, have a salary discussion.
Absolutely.
I do have one question before we get started on that. And I want to make sure my numbers are right, so these are the numbers that I had found. So in our general fund, plus the new money to the general fund, plus the 1% of the local option budget, gave us a $581,452 increase for this year,
This coming school year or
Yes.
this last year?
this coming school year.
I actually have, from what I've received, it's a total of 712,669. New, general fund is 637,437 and sped is 75,232. That includes your LOB in there.
Could you give that general fund number again?
Yeah, 637,437.
Okay. Okay, so my question is that, my understanding was that the bond was going to be refinanced or restructured. There was going to be a savings, with the bond issue for that.
We don't see the savings until 22 or 23. Our bond payment's actually quite a bit higher this year than it is in previous years.
Okay.
And Lorna, correct me if I'm wrong, where you probably see a little bit of a difference, and this can become confusing, is the mill levy can adjust.
Okay.
And then it looks like, well, this is what's going on, but from our standpoint, as far as making the payments, it doesn't necessarily equate the same, or in the same time frame. How was that convoluted?
Yeah, you lost me on that one. Basically, the only thing you're changing on your bond payment is the amount you're collecting on your mill levy. That's the only thing this has to do with, because we collect mill levy based on our bond payment. So we have to put in there what our bond payments are for next year.
Okay.
And then that's reflected in our mill levy.
Okay.
So like, our new money doesn't have anything to do with bond and interest.
Okay.
And even if our payment changes, that's just gonna be a difference in taxes assessed and money collected from the county that goes towards that. Like, I can't use bond and interest money for anything but that. It goes into a fund and we only collect money for that payment.
That was actually where my question was going.
Okay,
So-
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you answered it.
Okay.
Yes. No, that was going to be where my question went, that if there was a savings, then what would that savings be able to be used on?
Yeah,
Okay.
it just lowers the amount of taxes that we collect from the taxpayers.
Have we had any discussion about raising our LOB amount as a board?
It was approved
The
that
board-
they
the
can,
board-
they have not voted to
Right,
approve an
they have
increase
the
in it
authority
yet.
to do that, but there has been no discussion in a board meeting.
Yeah, we just voted on basically saying we could do it.
But we
Haven't
haven't had
done
any
it.
discussion on
Right.
that.
Okay, so back to salary. Did you guys have a salary proposal at this time?
We were hoping that you would give us yours.
Well,
I promise I won't laugh.
Lorna gave us a different number.
At least it was in a good way, not
Oh,
a bad
yes,
way.
no, I'm not being funny about that.
I'm gonna peel out anyway, unfortunately.
Can we look at setting a different meeting
Yeah,
time?
if you don't mind.
No.
I hate to do that. It's tax day and I need to switch to that. It's my job requires me to do that.
Taxes,
Yeah, I wish it was that, but no.
I would still like to at least do a proposal, but if Mr. Adams has to leave, then let's go ahead and get that scheduled and then.
And that's the only reason I said it, because it
Yeah.
gives you time to look at the numbers she
Yeah.
gave you, and you can work on that.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
that's okay with everybody, I mean.
Yeah,
So-
we're gonna shoot for it.
When would we like to meet again? I know that you guys might have to do a special board meeting, or do
Yeah.
you guys need to do something in order to discuss with the rest of the group?
Probably not before we,
No.
No, not until we talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we won't bring them in until we have something to bring them.
So did we want to meet next week?
Yeah, I think it'll have to be, I mean, with the golf tournament for SE, you know, AFC this Friday, next week looks probably best.
Next Wednesday?
Yeah, the task force meets at noon, so, I mean, that's next Wednesday. Yeah, that's a good point, that's the
I
only
mean,
thing we see.
that thing has been pretty much fixed in an hour though. I mean,
True.
so it is from 12 to 1.
do we wanna meet at 1?
We could all sit here, who's on the task force? Amy,
And, yeah,
I mean, we could
Yep.
sit here and zoom in and be ready to go at 1 o'clock as soon as that meeting's over.
as long as there's no homework or we have to get in our small groups.
Well, did you want to push it back to like 1:30, just to give yourself time to breathe?
Yeah, I can make that happen.
Are you guys timed?
The 22nd?
22nd at 1:30,
Fine.
doesn't have to be that.
Are you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Cheyenne?
Next week with Topeka's, Wednesday and Friday.
I'm open, so it's, I have the kid in camp, so I just have to take her to camps and away from camps in the morning, and, so, yeah. So, I mean, if we wanna go ahead and do the 22nd, it will be handy for Amy, cause she'll already be in town. I am open, are you guys okay with the 22nd?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you wanna go 1:30?
Wanna go 1:30?
Does this work here?
This was, I thought this was
this was
good.
all right.
I thought this was good.
This one?
Okay.
Just have to remember to come here. Awesome. It was a good meeting, I thought. I mean, we covered a lot again.
Yep. All right, can we take like a 5-minute break, if that, just so I can talk to these guys back here?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll do that.
Sound good? from him because of that. Don't forget to put no subs on it. That's all I'm saying.
No
It
what?
was the worst.
No what?
Oreos, like if you don't want sub, they'll give you some other
Oh, off-brand.
off-brand thing. It was garbage.
Can't have off-brand.
No,
Or
not
mac
some
and
things.
cheese.
There's no substitute.
No.
Mayonnaise.
Kids are like, what is this garbage?
Okay, so we had a chance to talk. And our proposal is step and lateral movement for all teachers who qualify, as well as 1,500 on the base. This does not include any consideration of adding the 15 minutes or adding an extra day with students. Our proposal is also adding, because of the increase in insurance and the district's past in the past, the districts have talked about wanting to work toward paying more for a single. And so with those two things in mind, we would also like to see $25 a month go toward insurance.
What's our full single now? 425? 450? Does anybody know?
Now, I thought it was 400.
What is it?
I thought it was 400.
We can-
400?
District pays
We
for it.
District.
We're paying for, it, but what is it? What is the actual, like how much
Like
is it?
total.
Total.
Depends.
Is it 5?
5 something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Sure say that.
But we're contributing 4 now, right? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, depending what tier.
What tier you choose.
But you still get.
Right, option one would be,
For
for just
single.
a single would be 100, is currently, without the increase, is currently 149.78 for a single with the $400 district. Option two, which is $1,000, is 132.19 with the $400. And option three is 118.45 with the 400 from the district. And then the high deductible option, which is option 4, is 95.91. And that's the $4,000 single.
And Marty, with the increase, that's just the premium. There's no change in deductibles or anything. Are they proposing that as
Correct.
well?
Right.
No change in the
No change
increase
in
of our high.
deductible or the drug plan.
Okay.
And I will tell you, the biggest reason that the folks in insurance tell me that prices are going up and why we didn't get a better deal from United and Aetna is prescription drug costs, which are at about they said nationwide, they're almost 12% higher than what they were. Locally in the Midwest, the central part of the states, it's a little over 9%. And that's what, now, and remember, these are insurance folks, so you take it with a grain of salt, but that's part of what's driving costs up.
Go ahead.
We know what that totals financially. Your salary package. cost-wise?
I don't. In the past, I had gotten numbers about if we raised it this amount of money, this is how much it will cost, and we did not receive that, so. I might be able to look back in past ones, because I think that's been fairly steady since it was. So the only other thing that I forgot that we, was not on this and that we did talk about, and that I would like to talk about in next week is, any MOUs or anything that we need to consider in regards to COVID and going back to school. Now, I know a lot of that was up in the air because of meetings with the State Board of Ed and, the meetings here in the district and the governor's talking here a little bit. And so a lot of that was up in the air. But as we get closer and things get more nailed down, we would really like to address some of those issues that any MOUs that we would need to put in for this year's contract, that would address any concerns that teachers have with COVID and going forward.
We can certainly add that, and I would say if you've got some specifics, if you would email those to me.
Oh, we've got so many questions, but.
Well,
But, I mean, specifically, we've got, I mean, there's questions on, you know, insurance, you know, how, days of sick leave, you know, where does that all come from, once the CARES Act used up, you know, the CARES Act doesn't, like, there's a lot. So, yeah, we'll definitely, once I get that, I can,
and that way we can
yeah.
maybe be more prepared to better answer those
Yeah.
questions.
Hey, Marty, do you know roughly, and you may not know, how many employees we have that have, how many teachers have insurance, or does every teacher?
401. There are 401 people involved in the insurance plan.
Okay.
I don't have it broke out, how that breaks out, but, I mean.
All right, so that's that wasn't my next question, but that's an interesting question. So, but we don't have 401
So
That
teachers.
includes anybody that would be retired that has qualified and has insurance too.
So if we do this,
But how
and
does
I'm
that-
just asking because I'm new and I'm sorry, and maybe this isn't the appropriate place to ask it, but is that $25 if we increase the district's portion from 400 to 425, is that across the board for every employee or just teachers?
It would
Okay.
be for anybody that would participate in this
Participate,
insurance.
yes, yeah.
And active
Okay.
employees, we're probably closer to 350.
Okay, but we don't bargain for them. Like, I would love to be able to
Right,
bargain.
right, I'm just
but-
saying that's the number.
We have to, I mean,
But we
That's
have
the
to,
number we want.
but I gotta know what my costs are gonna be.
No, you're asking that, I don't have a problem with, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out if we don't have that many teachers in the district, but we have, I realize there are more than just teachers, but I can't
401.
bargain for what those employees get, so.
So would you suggest that we not give that to everybody?
No, I just was wondering, if I did not know, honestly, that was the practice. I had no idea. I did not know that if you were not a teacher, that you got that, like, that if we increased that, then it got increased for everybody.
For every employee.
Yes, I was,
we have a choice on that? Marty, do you know? I feel like on health insurance, if you offer a plan, I don't know.
Right.
I think that
It's
one is,
different for
if one employee gets a raise, then everybody.
I think it's
don't know if
across
you
the
give more
board
to
for
some class
districts.
employees than others, but am I wrong?
Yeah, you can offer different plans.
Yeah, it's up to the board what you pay toward each thing. I mean, everybody can be a part of that group plan, but what we bargain is just for.
No, I get that, but
But
I'm
there's
thinking if
401
we decided to give
teachers,
you guys
active and retired.
425, I
Well,
thought federal law said you have to give everybody.
Mhm.
But now,
Teachers, there's probably 350, but,
25 years ago since I.
$25 would probably be safe to say.
okay, that's where I was confused, because,
Yeah.
okay,
Right, right.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys have for us, other than the stuff that we're still talking about the coverage for leave next week, if teachers just want to leave for, you know, come in late or leave a little early, and then, any COVID-related stuff, both of those were not on. I just want to make sure that was on our radar if we're talking about next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And if you will email that as a reminder to
Yeah.
me,
Okay.
so that I don't have some kind of brain lockup.
All right, sounds good.
And we'll plan to just be back here a week from today at 1:30.
Sounds good?
Okay.
Thank you.